From another town, Tom dreams of standing here. Here beyond the fence line, beyond the steady whir of out-of-time traffic climbing into gear on Springbank Road. Heavy with the palpable absence of birdsong in the silent spring of the 1970s is the Almatex paint factory, which, aided by memory, twitches between the ruins of itself today and what it was then, a sprawling compound of off-white 2- and 3-story concrete buildings, rusting sheet metal sheds, hulking gray cylindrical tanks, patches of manicured lawn. A delivery truck idles in the loading bay boasting Canada's favorite paint and serving to keep the nation beautiful. A man in the driver's seat sits upright, smiling.
I blink and look at my arms, my hands. These are a 6-year-old's hands. Dad's gazing. He must be 32 or 33 again. He's gazing at a glowing flame in the belly of an enormous furnace. Curiosity sparks within me. I blink again. I'm 17, sleeves rolled up over forearms, beginning to rope, mid-stride crossing a picket line on a bleak March morning to start my apprenticeship as an electrician. I pass my grandfather a helmet occupying a sidewalk line with hand-painted picket signs reading, "Alma paints a poor picture, and Almatex workers are not crying wolf," and "Meet us at the table, not the gate." He shakes his fist for the local news cameras, for effect. Even the corners of his eyes get into it. I know my father Manfred is out beyond the gate running the machines. Down on Duke Street, union guys rock and bang on the brown-on-brown Ford van full of strike-breaking scabs from Montreal. With a wrenching crack, two towering evergreens crash to the ground, and a narrow-latticed metal tower take their place. A CCTV camera trains itself on the strikers, obscuring the view of the birds. In the end, my dream returns to Helmut and Manfred, still alive. We stand just outside the fence. The factory resurrects.
Tom drives to London and pulls up to that same chain-link fence, padlocked and still topped with barbed wire. The plant closed in 2001. Its warehouses, laboratory, and factory are gone. However, cement pads and blocks of concrete threaded with rebar remain, marking where men once mixed paint. The bright trill of the red-winged blackbird, the sight of a swaying riot of goldenrod, the lemon scent of furry red sumac berries does not reach him. All he can see are the ruins of a place he once loved.
In the late 1990s, the plant was limping to an end. My father, with hands and back stiffened by years of hard labor, kept the boilers running. Valspar, the plant's final owner, oversaw the dismantling of mixers and tanks by men whose names they didn't know, didn't ask for. He was the last to leave. I can picture him handing over the keys and his pager, saying, "All right, take care." I did. I remember cutting the tall grass in the orchard one summer. The earthy, rotting smell of standing water, the sweetness of solvents cloying in August heat. Sweat dripping as I wove in and out of the tidy rows of trees, heavy with fruit no one was harvesting anymore. My immune system was not happy. The swirling pollen left me with itchy eyes, a running nose. For days. Which reminds me, I was on a summer job repairing something near the solvent farm, this area of the yard where 6 great big gray cylindrical tanks stored xylene for transport. Well, I was cutting a pipe, and my saw slipped and knocked the tap off one of these solvent tanks. Now, when I say spewed, do you understand? A geyser of the stuff, sideways. I'm 15, trying to fix the faucet back in place. The solvent blew the glasses off my face, and blinded, I staggered across the yard to my dad's maintenance shop to wash my eyes for a long time. Couldn't sleep nights because of the feeling of sand under my eyelids. The sort of scraping feeling of sand under my eyelids you couldn't wash away. Somehow, I'm standing here today, able to see the ruins of those buildings.
We now know that same solvent was carried by clay tile out to the ponds beyond the orchard. In 1973, an environmental survey found that just over 2 million gallons of contaminated water reached what was described back then as a sewage lagoon. In winter, you can still see fish swarming around the warmer inflow of water where the factory's disposal system still empties into the South Pond.
Some of the stories come back to me. The ones the older guys told sitting on those hard plastic lunch containers between bites or with one ankle crossed on another and smoking or rolling a cigarette. Imagine this. A man stands on top of an empty paint tank, cleans it with the very same solvent that blew my glasses off, inspects his work gazing down into, but the fumes accumulate and teeter him. Knees buckle, he slips, down into the tank. Buddies reach for his armpits like you're supposed to do and fish him out. His head was lolling. Another time, 66, some of the guys were sent to dig a pit in the orchard and fill it with swirling paint, expired. The color is a sort of kaleidoscope of kitchen pastels. Anyway, later on, I don't know how long, a thick black column of smoke stands up hundreds of feet in the air like a dragon. The firemen come racing down Duke Street and through the compound, kicking up dust and gravel. They blamed local kids for throwing a match into the flammable mire. I've seen black and white pictures of these men, sometimes with glares in their eyes, but more often with lopsided grins. eyes crinkled, just this side of mischievous. Guys my grandfather worked with back in the 50s, 60s. Nothing covering their eyes or mouths, emptying bags of powdered pigment into mixers and cellars, most of it laced with lead. You can tell from the way the flash seems to freeze the heavy air that it was thick with it.
The heavy metal settled into their bodies as it settled into the land.
They weren't bad guys. They had a job to do. Most of them had kids. That was just how it was done. When you've got mouths to feed today, you don't think about tomorrow. I remember my dad just recounting a meeting with the new manager they brought in from Valspar. Like, indignantly recounting. He was a real piece of work, smug in his suit, telling these men, who had given this plant their bodies for 30 years, they're shutting their factory down. There are winners and losers here, this manager quipped. You are the losers. Where were they supposed to go? My parents emigrated here from West Berlin in 1962, a year after the wall really started to devastate the city. That year, my dad started working for the Wolf family, Czechoslovakian Jews who got out just ahead of the Germans in '38.
In 1939, Henry Wolfe bought most of the land contained within the Coves Oxbow from the Canadian government, which had been operating a rifle range and training ground there. Amongst the spent rifle shells, he planted a fruit orchard, built a house, quietly continued the trade that had been in his family for nearly 2 centuries, making paint.
You know, they used to say that Henry Wolfe started all of this by mixing paint in an old washing machine in the basement and selling it at the market.
The business grew quickly and thrived in the 40s and 50s, developing a unique plastic finish paint specifically for the Canadian contribution to the war that had displaced its founders. This little, unremarkable bowl of land, just like these immigrant men's lives, were shaped by worldwide forces. The factory and their work there was their Canadian dream materialized. Tom stops and remembers all of this, but he doesn't stay long. The place he grew up is gone.